October 1915. Somewhere in the Weddell Sea, a wooden ship is being slowly crushed to death. 28 men stand on the ice and listen to it happen. The timbers groan for days. Beams as thick as a man's body snap like matchwood. There's no radio that can reach anyone. No one on Earth knows where they are. Their ship is called Endurance. When she goes under, they will be stranded on a moving sheet of frozen ocean, 1,000 miles from the nearest human being, with 3 small lifeboats and no way home. Every one of them will survive. This is how. In 1914, the South Pole had already been reached. Amundsen got there first. Scott died coming back. So Ernest Shackleton chose the only prize left, to walk across Antarctica, coast to coast, on foot. He assembled 27 men, sailors, scientists, a carpenter, a photographer named Frank Hurley, who would drag a camera through everything that followed. They sailed south in August 1914, just as Europe went to war. On December 5th, 1914, Endurance left the whaling station on South Georgia and pushed into the ice. It would be 497 days before any of them stood on solid land again. The pack ice that year was the worst in living memory. Endurance was built for it, but on January 19, 1915, just one day's sail from the coast where the expedition was meant to begin, the ice closed around her and stopped. They waited for the thaw. It never came. Instead, the whole frozen sheet began to drift, carrying the ship with it. For 9 months, they lived aboard a vessel going nowhere, playing football on the ice beside her, training the dogs, waiting. Then the pressure came. Millions of tons of ice moving against itself, squeezing the hull from both sides. The ship fought for weeks. Beams bowed inward. Water came in faster than the pumps could take it out. On October 27th, Shackleton gave the order to abandon ship. They dragged the boats, the food, and the tents onto the ice and watched her from a distance. On November 21st, 1915, Endurance finally slipped under. Shackleton wrote 3 words in his diary: "She's gone, boys." Now they lived on the ice itself. They camped on a floe, a raft of frozen seawater, a few feet thick, drifting wherever the current took it. They ate seal and penguin. They slept in wet reindeer skin bags. At night, the floe cracked and reformed beneath them, and more than once a man woke to find a gap opening under his tent. For 5 months they drifted north. There was nothing to do but wait for the ice to break up enough to launch the boats, and hope it did not break up underneath them first. In April 1916, the floe split for the last time. They got into 3 small open lifeboats and rowed into the freezing sea. For 7 days, they fought the water without proper sleep, hands frozen to the oars, sea spray turning to ice on their faces. And on April 15th, they dragged themselves onto a black volcanic beach on Elephant Island. It was the first solid ground they had touched in 497 days, and it was still one of the emptiest places on Earth. No ship would ever pass it. Nobody was coming. So Shackleton decided to go and get help himself. The plan was close to suicide. Take the largest lifeboat, a 22-foot open boat called the James Caird, and sail it 800 miles across the Southern Ocean to the whaling stations of South Georgia. The roughest sea on the planet, waves the height of buildings. In a boat you could park in a living room. The carpenter raised her sides with straps of wood and canvas. 6 men went: Shackleton, the navigator Frank Worsley, and 4 others. 22 stayed behind on the beach, with an upturned boat for a roof. They left on April 24, 1916. For 16 days they were soaked, frozen, and nearly capsized. Ice built up on the deck until they had to crawl out and chip it away, or sink. Worsley could only take a sun sighting 4 times in the entire crossing. The sky was almost never clear enough. Everything depended on his arithmetic being right. It was right. On May 10th, they made landfall on South Georgia, on the wrong side of the island. Between them and the whaling station stood a mountain range no one had ever crossed. They had been at the sea for over 2 weeks. They had no map, no tents, and 50 feet of rope. 3 of them went anyway and walked for 36 hours straight over glaciers and unnamed peaks, sliding down an ice slope in the dark because they had no other way off of it. On the morning of May 20th, 3 men walked into the whaling station at Stromness. They were black with blubber smoke, in rags, with hair to their shoulders. The station manager had known Shackleton personally. He did not recognize him. The first thing Shackleton asked what had happened in the war. The answer was that it was still going and that millions were dead. Then he began trying to get back to the 22 men on Elephant Island. The first ship was stopped by the ice. So was the second. So was the third. 3 separate attempts, 3 failures. 4 months of watching the pack refused to let him through. On August 30th, 1916, a small Chilean steamer called the Yelcho found a gap. The men on the beach had been living under 2 upturned boats for 4.5 months. When they saw the ship, Shackleton counted them from the deck as they came out, one by one, until he reached 22. Not a single man of the Endurance party was lost. The expedition failed completely. Shackleton never crossed Antarctica. He never even set foot on it. By the standards he set himself, the whole thing was a disaster. And it is still remembered as one of the greatest things anyone has ever done. Because for 2 years, in the worst conditions on the planet, he kept every one of his men alive, and he never once left anybody behind. In March 2022, a search team found Endurance on the sea floor, 3,000 meters down. The freezing water had preserved her almost perfectly. She is still standing upright in the dark, in astonishingly good condition, more than a century after she sank. The ship that failed, still intact, which raises a question worth sitting with. What is a failure actually worth if everyone comes home? Not every expedition ended with everyone alive. One colony walked into the American wilderness and vanished completely, leaving a single word behind. That video is on screen now. Welcome to Hollow Ages.